In football, some victories look easy when you only glance at the final score. But when you go back and watch the match, you realize the road was far more difficult than most people imagine. That perfectly describes the round of 32 clash between the United States and Bosnia and Herzegovina at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Anyone looking only at the scoreline would think the United States comfortably won 2-0 and advanced. But those who watched the game know the Americans had to play a long stretch with 10 men and fight for every minute to keep the World Cup dream alive. Before kickoff, the United States entered the match full of confidence after finishing top of their group. American fans saw it as a great opportunity to continue their run in the tournament. Bosnia and Herzegovina, meanwhile, were enjoying one of the greatest moments in their football history after reaching the knockout stage. That was why the match began cautiously, with both teams knowing that a single mistake could end their World Cup journey. As the game progressed, it became incredibly balanced, and the post-match statistics proved it. Bosnia recorded 11 shots compared to 9 for the United States. They also enjoyed 52% possession, while the Americans had 48%. Even the passing numbers were remarkably close, with Bosnia completing 430 passes to the United States 399. Those statistics show that this was far from the one-sided American performance the final score might suggest. Bosnia played without fear. Edin Dzeko led the attack with all of his experience, while the midfield tried to dictate the tempo. On the other side, the United States relied on quick transitions and pace, led by Christian Pulisic and Valerian Balogun. Both teams were simply waiting for the right moment to strike first. As halftime approached, the United States gradually increased the pressure. Their movement became sharper, the tempo picked up, and Bosnia began dropping deeper. Then came the moment the American fans had been waiting for. Valerian Balogun capitalized on a defensive mix-up inside the penalty area and scored the opening goal just before halftime. It was a crucial strike, arriving at the perfect moment and giving the United States a huge psychological advantage going into the break. That goal completely changed the flow of the match. Bosnia now had to push forward in search of an equalizer, while the United States could play from a position of second campaign. Early in the second half came the game's biggest turning point. Valerian Balogun, the man who had scored the opener, was shown a red card after a VAR 10 men for a significant portion of the match. The red card transformed the contest entirely. The Americans were forced to defend with one player fewer for a long period, and fans immediately began wondering whether they could hold on to their advantage. The players answered that question with tremendous determination. Instead of falling apart, the team became even more organized, showing tremendous fighting spirit as they battled to keep their World Cup hopes alive. At that moment, the match entered a completely different phase. Bosnia and Herzegovina suddenly had the numerical advantage, and the crowd expected the pressure to keep increasing as time went on. That's exactly what happened. Bosnia began enjoying more possession, attacking relentlessly, and testing the American defense from every angle. But this was where the quality of tournament teams truly showed. The United States may not have been the better side throughout every phase of the match, but they remained incredibly disciplined. The defenders stayed fully focused, the midfield sacrificed tirelessly, and every player covered extra ground to make up for being a man down. During this period, Bosnia were enjoying their best spell of the game. They controlled possession, created more attacking opportunities, and kept constant pressure on the American backline. Yet despite all of that, the United States maintained their composure and prevented Bosnia from creating many clear-cut chances. As the clock continued to tick, the tension grew. Bosnia believed an equalizer was within reach, while the United States knew that one mistake could undo everything they had worked so hard to protect. Every passing minute brought the Americans closer to qualification, but it also increased the pressure on them. Although Bosnia finished with 52% possession, they struggled where it mattered most, the final touch. They consistently reached dangerous areas, but lacked the quality to turn possession into genuine scoring opportunities. That allowed the American defense to remain solid despite the relentless pressure. Then, just as Bosnia were throwing everything forward in search of an equalizer, the decisive moment arrived. In the 82nd minute, the United States earned a free kick in an ideal position. Malik Tillman stepped up and delivered one of the finest free kicks of the tournament, curling the ball into the net to double America's lead. That goal was the true turning point of the match. Bosnia still believed they could fight their way back into the game. But once the score became 2-0, with only a few minutes remaining, it was clear that the task had become almost impossible. It was much more than just a second goal. It effectively ended Bosnia's hopes. Instead of needing one goal to force extra time, they suddenly needed two in the closing stages of the match, a mountain that proved too high to climb. What made the goal even more impressive was that it came while the United States was still playing with 10 men. Rather than simply defending their lead, the Americans showed they were determined to finish the match on their own terms, proving they were not just surviving. They were still looking to win convincingly. If we look at the statistics, it becomes clear that the match was much closer than the final score suggests. Bosnia and Herzegovina finished with more possession and more shots, but the United States were far more clinical. And that's exactly what makes the difference in knockout football. If there were two heroes for the United States, the first was undoubtedly Malik Tillman, whose stunning free kick completely put the game out of reach. The second was the entire American defense. Holding on to a lead while playing with 10 men for such a long period is an achievement in itself. As for Bosnia and Herzegovina, they leave the tournament with their heads held high. They delivered a strong performance, reached the knockout stage, and pushed the United States until the final whistle. But in the end, it was the small details that made all the difference. The United States, meanwhile, accomplished exactly what they came to do. They secured their place in the round of 16, restored the confidence of their supporters, and proved they could win even under the most difficult circumstances. More importantly, they did it while playing with 10 men for much of the match. Most people will simply remember that the United States defeated Bosnia and Herzegovina 2-0 to advance. But those who watched the match know the story was far greater than the scoreline. It was the story of a team that scored first, then lost one of its key forwards to a red card, fought for over half the match with 10 players, and still found a way to score a second goal that sealed the victory. It was the story of a team that turned an incredibly difficult match into another step forward at the World Cup. Most importantly, the United States will now face Belgium in the round of 16. After seeing what the Americans accomplished with 10 men against Bosnia and Herzegovina, Belgium will know that the next challenge will be anything but easy. The United States proved on this night that they don't need to play a perfect match to win. They simply need to stay organized, remain focused, and make the most of their decisive moments.